Hey, this is Matt from the National, and we're here at the Austin City Limits Festival, and we're going on before Atoms for Peace. And they hung their part of their rigging in front of our LCD wall, and so you're only going to see two-thirds of our show because we have Atoms for Peace lighting in front of our show. Anyways, no one's fault. Everything's cool, but we're excited to be here.
I should leave it alone, but you're not right. I should leave it alone, but you're not right.
My brother and I were in a band with Brian, the drummer, since we were like 14 and 15, and Scott and Brian, Scott is Brian's brother, had been in a band before that in high school or like middle school even, and then Matt and Scott were in a band in college. So at some point we had just converged when we were all living in New York in the late 90s, and it was a pretty natural evolution and not ambitious at first. Still not ambitious.
It had the least amount of fighting and angst and anxiety, and I think mostly it had to do with like we've kind of come to peace, come to a point where we just know how we collaborate, we know how we work together, and there's a lot of like tension in that, and we've just like said, well, that's just how we work together. So this time, in a weird way of just knowing that that's just part of the process, alleviated a lot of the anxiety and tenseness and stuff. So I think that's part of why it was smoother, I think. And we also would just like stopped worrying about what kind of band people thought we were, you know, and we just wrote the songs and followed the songs that we liked, and without being too self-conscious about it. Sequencing, we always have lots of fights during the sequencing of the record, because it can completely change the way a record feels, you know, how you put it together. And this one, although the weird thing with this one, I think it happened really quickly for the first time. For whatever reason, I think the first song seemed appropriate for the first song. Oh wait, there was a big battle over the first song, wasn't there?
Not between us, though. It was our manager didn't think the first song should be first.
All right.
But we couldn't think of anything else that should be first, and we didn't know where else to put it. So.
Right.
But I think it works.
But it's kind of a process to see how one song flows into another and all that kind of. And it's a really fun part of the process, because the songs are done, and now it's like. Now you're finishing the 45-minute experience or whatever, and it's an exciting and kind of stressful thing to do, but and we often we'll master it one way, and then we'll go back in at the last minute and switch it around again, which we did this time, right? We mastered it one way, and then we had a second thought at the very end.
I don't think we. Sorry, you're getting a long answer. I think we did that with High Violet.
Oh.
This time.
Oh, High Violet's a good story. I faked an email from a mutual friend that everybody really likes, with a recommended sequence that I thought he said he really liked, but he never wrote this email. I wrote it, and everybody's like, "Oh, if he likes it that way, let's go with that one." I was like, "Okay, we'll go with that one," and it was a completely fabricated trick.
And then he felt so bad that right after we left the mastering studio, we went to a bar, and then he confessed to this scandal.
Yeah.
I have some good stories.
I don't play any.
We tried to get you to learn, but you refused. It's true.
Oh, my instrument. I have so many stories. No.
We have a good story. My brother has this. If you see him, most of the time now he's playing this 1965 Gibson Firebird, which are kind of rare and extremely expensive. Not something we could normally afford, but he found it online on eBay. It was like one of those, somebody had painted it and spray painted it and covered it. It was like heavy metal paint and all this stuff on it, and so they couldn't even tell. They couldn't see the Gibson sign. They couldn't see the serial number. It was caked with paint. But a friend of ours is really an expert with guitars and found it. So my brother bought it for nothing on eBay. We got a heat gun out and stripped off where the serial number was, and immediately saw that it was 1965 Firebird, which kind of made it a super beautiful expensive guitar, and then we restored it, and now it's kind of like
Was that the one? Was that the one that was covered in like everything? The stuff was glued to it. Like
Yeah.
pills were glued to it, and condoms were glued to it, and that's a
Wasn't
different
that?
one.
That was
That's
a
a
different
You
one,
might
yeah.
remember the one I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
Yeah.
Like jelly beans and like Advil were glued to it, and there were condoms glued, like cigarettes were glued to it, and anyway, that was one of our first guitars. How has it changed? I always put a suit on, and I used to not do that, but somehow it made me feel more like it's like going to church or something. It's like take this seriously, and this is that's kind of, yeah. We don't do much like we don't do any group hugs or anything like that. Mostly we start just drinking a little bit beforehand, and we have no rituals or anything like that.
The only person with the elaborate ritual is our drummer Brian, and he has highly elaborate, like, many-step process, including like he has to call his wife at a certain time, and she says some word, we don't know what it is, and there's like a long ritual.
He kills a rabbit he skins a rabbit before every performance, and it's a whole, and he wears it's weird.
Well, our hometown crowd, I guess if we think of Cincinnati, that's one thing. In Brooklyn, it's like a totally where we live, or some of us live. That's a different crowd. Every city is different. Austin, people are kind of up for it, and they're loud, and like we played Stubbs last night, and it was when I took my ear plugs out, it was really loud, the audience, which is a nice feeling, because sometimes American audiences are more mellow than European ones.
I think this feels more like a hometown crowd here than it does in our hometowns. But
yeah, Cincinnati, we're not that loved, but
we're not hated.
We're not hated.
Think about something so much you should know me better than that. Stop this line out of touch. You should know me better than that. Tell yourself it's only noise. You should know me better than that. Learn to appreciate the